It started when my cousin Ryan threw a bachelor party for his brother, my cousin Dylan. I was invited, and of course, I said I'd come. My wife, Claire, didn't like it one bit. Claire had an extremely low opinion of bachelor parties grounded in the disaster she'd seen in her own family. Her brother Jason went to one and ended up catching a disease he could never adequately explain to his wife. Her cousin Travis left his wife and kids to run off with one of the party's hired entertainers. And her father? He got drunk at a bachelor party, crashed his car, and landed in the hospital for a week. No, Claire was absolutely not thrilled with my decision to attend. I reminded her that she'd gone to a few bachelorette parties herself complete with male strippers. That's different, she insisted. Do you realize how stupid that sounds? I asked. It's a well-known fact, she fired back, that women can control themselves, but men can't. Do you know how stupid that sounds? I snapped. She shook her head. I don't want to fight, Ethan. I just don't want you to go to Dylan's bachelor party. Take him to dinner or something, but don't go to that party. What you're really saying, Claire, I said, is that you don't trust me. After 2 years of dating, 2 years living together, and 8 years married, you still don't know me better than that? I didn't wait for an answer. Well, I'm going, and that's final. That wasn't the end of it. There were still 9 days until the party, and Claire used every one of them to make my life miserable. The house went cold emotionally and physically. She barely spoke to me. Her primary weapon, of course, was her control over sex. We normally made love 3 to 4 times a week, but for those 9 days, nothing. All I got was, "Not today, Ethan. I don't feel well." Or the classic, "I've got a headache." I knew the message loud and clear. And I also knew that if I went to that party, the drought might last a lot longer. But I can be just as stubborn and just as stupid, so I decided I'd go anyway. We lived in a state where non-consensual marital sex wasn't classified as a crime, but that didn't mean I was going to take what wasn't freely offered. The consequences of that were obvious and not worth it. Instead, I got my own little revenge-a-no-thing dramatic, but it felt good in its own way. Every Friday night, without fail, I took Claire out to dinner. That week, I didn't. When I got home from work, she was already dressed and ready. She expected the usual routine. Instead, I walked past her, went upstairs to the room I'd turned into a home office, and sat down at my desk. I turned on my computer. When I didn't come down, she came to find me. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Why aren't we going to dinner?" "I'm busy," I said, staring at the screen, "looking for good adult sites online." She froze. "What are you talking about?" "I've been trying to find a decent video," I said casually. "You kicked me off the Real Thing, so I figured I'd do some research. You can watch if you want." The door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. She didn't want to be an audience, clearly. The next morning, I left the house before she even woke up. I had a standing golf tee time at 6:10 with 3 buddies every Saturday. Claire never got up before 8. She had a regular appointment at the beauty salon at 11, so she was usually home by the time I returned. Except that day, she missed it. I'd taken her car instead of my pickup. Her car was automatic, my truck was manual, and Claire didn't know how to drive stick. I know it sounds petty, but when you're playing these kinds of games, small wins matter. To say Claire was furious when I got home would be an understatement. I ignored her, went upstairs, showered, got ready for Dylan's bachelor party. Her voice echoed through the house one last time. "Damn it, Ethan! I told you I didn't want you going to that party." I didn't answer, just walked out the door, climbed into the truck, and drove away. The party itself? It was typical. 17 guys, some beer, some food, some music, and I sat back down across from Claire, still trying to make sense of all the tension that had unfolded over the last hour. She looked at me and said, "Did you really turn her down?" There was disbelief in her tone, not sarcastic, but stunned. She was joking, obviously, when she said she was one of the most beautiful and sexiest women in the state. But she's not wrong, is she? And you turned her down? "Of course I turned her down," I said. "I'm married. I made vows in front of God, in front of over 100 people. I take those vows seriously, even if others don't. Claire's eyes dropped, and for a moment, she said nothing. Then, almost in a whisper, "Damn it, Ethan. I told you I'd take a lie detector test if that's what it takes. I didn't cheat on you." I shook my head slowly. "This is how I see it, Claire. You made this mess. If it's going to be cleaned up, then you're the one who has to do the cleaning." I stood up, grabbing my coat. "What does that mean?" she asked, alarmed. "Where are you going? We need to fix this. Ethan, you need to come home. Think about it, Claire. Maybe you'll understand." I turned and walked out of the bar. Later that night, as I emptied my pockets at the motel, I noticed I still had the envelope she'd given Metha one with the new house key inside. I'd forgotten I'd taken it. I stared at it a moment, wondering if it meant something. A sign, maybe. The next 2 days were packed. I had to fly to Denver for meetings that went better than expected, possibly setting me up for a strong bonus at year-end. I came back feeling surprisingly upbeat. Thought I'd treat myself to a quiet dinner at my favorite steakhouse. 10 minutes after I sat down, Natalie, Megan, and 2 guys walked in and settled across the dining room. Natalie caught sight of me and gave a warm smile before turning to whisper something to Megan. Megan looked up, smiled, and gave a little wave. I nodded back, amused at the irony. Those guys with them? They were probably the luckiest men in the city and didn't even know it. And here I was, sitting alone, wondering for the 100th time why I'm built the way I am. I could have had either of those women. Both, probably. They'd practically offered. But I couldn't cross that line. I didn't want to. And I couldn't help but think how long it had been, almost a month since I'd last made love, and how much longer it might still be. As I was finishing dessert, Natalie got up and strolled over. "Come sit with us, Ethan," she said. "It's not a date or anything, more of a business dinner. These guys are planning a bachelor party. We're discussing the details." She grinned. "I pointed you out as a satisfied client. They asked me to invite you over. I think they want a testimonial." "I wasn't a client, Natalie," I said. "You didn't have to use the service," she winked. "You saw everything. Did anyone look disappointed?" I thought about it. Number. Exactly. Just tell them everyone had the time of their lives. I sighed and followed her back to the table. I answered a few of their questions tactfully, and by the end, they seemed satisfied. One of the men paid the check and said, "See you Friday at 7 o'clock. Then they both left. Megan leaned over and smirked. "Well, Ethan, now you're alone with 2 hot girls who want your body. What now, going back to your room to cry?" I gave them both a long look. If I were single, I'd kill to be with either of you. But I'm not. I'm married. That's something I still take seriously. I don't cheat, period. I caught a glance exchanged between them, something subtle, unreadable, and then Natalie said, "Fair enough, but you can at least stay for a drink, right?" "I can do that," I smiled. We had 2 rounds, just talking, nothing more. Later that night, back in my room, I started turning everything over in my head, and by the end of the next day, I made a decision. I needed to stop by the house, talk to Claire. I was leaning toward believing her about Victor Lane, but we still had to talk about the bigger issues. Her habit of weaponizing intimacy, the mind games, the mistrust. I used the key she gave me, walked quietly through the front door. I wasn't sure what to expect, but what I didn't expect was to hear Claire's voice from the kitchen. She was on speakerphone. She did that sometimes while cooking or multitasking. And then I heard Natalie's voice. I froze. "If you and Kayla couldn't seduce him," she was saying, "then I doubt those dancers at the bachelor party even had a chance. I think it's time you come clean, friend." The blood drained from my face. My body didn't move, but my ears went razor sharp. The story was about to change. "I told you that story at the bar about how I met Ethan. That was total fiction," Natalie said through the speakerphone, her voice low but steady. "The truth is, Megan and I were the dancers at that bachelor party. Everything Ethan told you about what happened, it was 100% true. Our car wouldn't start, and he gave us a ride home. Then he came back the next day to fix the damn thing. She paused, then added with a little edge of amusement, "We practically threw ourselves at him, and all he let me do was kiss him on the cheek. He was in a bad mood, and I asked him why. He just opened up, told me about everything he was going through with you. I told him if things didn't work out with his wife, he should call me. Of course, I had no idea you were his wife." There was a moment of silence on the line, and then Claire asked, barely audible, "So you think I should try to fix this?" "My friend, you've got a golden man. You should do everything in your power to hold on to him." Claire exhaled. "I painted myself into a corner, Nat, and now I'm stuck." "How so?" "I told him I'd take a lie detector test. I thought he'd say it wasn't necessary, that he believed me. But instead, he said that I created the mess, so I should clean it up. Which means I have to follow through." "Then do it," Natalie said bluntly. "I can't." Claire's voice cracked. "I would pass the question about Melly didn't do anything with him. But that's not the only question they'll ask, is it? They'll ask, have you ever cheated on your husband? And I can't lie on that one. I won't pass." There was a long pause. "You're talking about those 3 parties from years ago, aren't you?" Natalie asked. Claire was quiet. "That was over 6 years ago," Natalie reminded her. "But I was married then," Claire said softly. "And that's the question. Have you ever cheated on your husband? Not recently. Ever." "Frank doesn't know?" Natalie asked carefully. "Number. And now he expects me to pass that test." "Why did you stop?" Natalie asked gently. I mean, let's be honest. You were a star with the guys, and you looked like you enjoyed it." "I didn't just like it," Claire admitted. "I loved it. I still think about it. I wanted more of it, but I knew if I kept going, eventually Ethan would find out, and I couldn't let that happen. He means everything to me." "Then why did you start in the first place?" Claire's voice was filled with regret. "He was away for over 3 months on that long-term project. He wasn't coming back for a while. I was starved for attention. And sex. I was losing it. You and Megan would talk about your nights, and it made me reckless. It sounded exciting, wild. So I said yes, and God, it was amazing. But it was a choice, and when I had to make that choice again, I chose Ethan." "Then you know what you have to do." Claire didn't answer. "You're not going to like this, but it's the only way," Natalie said. "Confess. Tell him the truth. All of it." "He'll leave me," Claire whispered. "Maybe. Maybe not. He's a man who clearly values honesty. I tried to seduce him, Claire. I threw everything at him. And the way he turned me down, that man loves you. If there's any chance left," Natalie continued, "it's only if you stop hiding. You want my help, you've got it. But you've got to be honest with him." The line went quiet. I stepped away from the hallway and walked out of the house like a ghost. I drove back to the motel in a fog. Claire doing those things? Not just with Victor, but long before, at bachelor parties? I never would have believed it. Not in a million years. But now it made sense. She hadn't cheated on me with Victor Lane, but she had cheated on me. And that changed everything. When I took that key back from her, I planned to try, to fix things. But that overheard conversation burned a hole through my chest, and suddenly, I didn't know what to do anymore. I couldn't sit in that motel room, spinning in circles, so I grabbed my keys and drove back to the Hitch and Post. After 2 beers and 3 games of pool, I saw Victor Lane stroll in, arm in arm with some red-headed girl in a tight black dress. I waited. Let them settle in. Waited for the first round of drinks to hit the table. Then I walked straight over. He looked up as I approached, cocky as ever. "What's up, Ethan?" "You told my wife you had pictures of me doing something inappropriate at Caleb's bachelor party. Said you'd show her if she slept with you. So I figured, why not cut the middleman? Show me the pictures." "I won't sleep with you just to see those pictures," I said, staring Victor Lane down. "But in the mood I'm in right now, I'm ready to give you a very bad night." He didn't flinch. "I'm not afraid of you, Ethan." "That's good," I said calmly. If you were, you'd avoid me and I wouldn't get the chance to make this personal. Win or lose, Victor, doesn't matter to me, as long as I hurt you a little in the process. He glanced around, trying to act casual. Let's do this another time, all right? I'm with someone right now. I turned toward the red-haired woman sitting beside him. Let me tell you a story, I said, polite but direct. This guy, he's been trying to sleep with my wife for years. Last week, we had a bachelor party for my cousin. After the party, this guy called my wife and told her he had photos of me cheating with 2 dancers. Then get this, he told her that if she wanted revenge, she should sleep with him, and he'd show her the pictures. Her eyebrow shot up, and she looked at Victor like he was something she'd just scraped off her shoe. And thanks to his little stunt, I added, my wife and I are now separated. That's the kind of man you're sitting with. She stared at him a moment longer, then turned to me and said, I'd leave him right now, but I don't have a way to get home. I'll drive you, I offered. Or, if you'd rather not take the risk, I'll pay for your cab. The thing is, I just got here, she said. I was looking forward to a night out. You play pool? I asked. She smiled. Yeah. Then come join me and the guys at the tables. When the band starts, Dave, Jim, and I can keep you on the dance floor until you're ready to leave. She didn't even look back at Victor. She stood up and said, Let's go. As we walked away, I turned and looked Victor square in the eyes. This isn't over. Sooner or later, we'll end up somewhere where the cops aren't around, and I'm going to make sure you remember it. And one more thing. Every time I see you in here with a girl, I'm going to do this exact same thing. The redhead and I headed for the pool tables. Her name was Zoe, and she was funny, smart, and not half bad with a cue stick. We played a few games, and when the band finally kicked in, I asked her to dance. While we moved to the rhythm, she looked at me and asked, That story about Victor, was that all true? Every word, I said. You and your wife, are things settled yet? Not yet, I admitted. And I don't know if they ever will be. So, meeting me is revenge? A way to get even? No, I said, shaking my head. Ruining Victor's night? Sure, but no matter what my wife died or didn't do, I'm not cheating. That line? I don't cross it. I meant what I said, no strings. If you want to ride home, great. If not, I'll call a cab. Zoe gave me a long look. You know what? I believe you. And that's strange, because I usually don't trust married men. The music ended, but we didn't stop. For the next couple of hours, the 3 of us kept Zoe laughing and dancing. I noticed Victor off to the side at one point, snapping photos with his phone. I figured I could expect Claire to get another carefully edited version of reality by morning. Around 11 o'clock, Zoe said she had to go work the next day. I offered to call a cab, but she smiled and said, No, I'll take that ride. On the drive, we talked. She told me she was a legal secretary. Met Victor when he came into her office on a case. He seemed charming, she said. Guess I'm not great at spotting the bad ones. Most people aren't, I said, but I'm biased. What he tried to do to my wife, that's unforgivable. She must be something, Zoe said. Hot enough for a guy like him to chase her all these years? Yeah, she is, I said. But more than that, she's complicated. When we pulled up to her place, Zoe leaned over, kissed me lightly on the cheek, and handed me a slip of paper. I may not be great at spotting the wrong guys, she said, but I'm very good at spotting the right ones. If it doesn't work out, call me. I smiled, thanked her, and drove back to the motel. I felt better than I had in days. That quiet confidence lasted all the way to my door. Then my phone rang. Claire. I answered. Yes? We need to talk, Ethan. Can you come over tomorrow night after work? Number, I've got plans tomorrow. What about the day after? Yeah, I can do that. 7 o'clock. I'll make dinner. No dinner, Claire. I'll be there at 7 o'clock. I hung up. I could have gone over sooner, but I had a feeling I knew what Claire was planning to say. And before that happened, I needed to do something first. something for me. I rummaged through my wallet and found the small piece of paper I'd tucked away weeks ago. I stared at it for a long moment, weighing whether I really wanted to do this. Whether I wanted to pull the trigger on a conversation that might confirm everything I'd feared or worse, things I hadn't even considered yet. But in the end, I dialed the number. It rang twice before Natalie picked up. "Ethan? I need a favor," I said quietly. "A big one." She was already waiting for me by the time I walked into the Hitch and Post, sitting in a corner booth, nursing a drink, expression unreadable. I slid into the seat across from her, and she leaned in, resting her arms on the table. "All right, Ethan. Full attention. You said if I could help, I should. So, how can I?" "I need you to tell me everything you know about Claire," I said. "Not the good stuff, just the bad. No filters." Natalie blinked. "Bad?" "It's a bad thing I'm dealing with, Natalie. And I can't walk into it blind. I need to know exactly what I'm forgiving if I choose to forgive anything at all." She hesitated. "I don't know if I'm the right person to—" "You know about the 3 bachelor parties she went to while I was in Alaska for 5 months," I said flatly. Her face went pale. "So you do know," I said. "Then I need you to help me understand everything else I don't know. Because if I do go back to Claire, I'm not going in halfway. This is an all-in-or-nothing situation. If she confesses like you told her she should, I want to hear everything. If I forgive her for that and then find out later there was more, that's it. I walk and never look back." Natalie exhaled, slow and long. "How did you find out?" "Let's just say, you're not the only one who suggested she come clean." She looked away, then nodded slowly. "Okay, if you're serious, I'll tell you. About the parties, about everything I know. But you need to understand, most of this didn't come from me. It came from Claire." "I'm listening." "You already saw one of the parties," she said. "The one where we met. The rest were pretty much the same. Same setup, different faces." I nodded. "So how did she even get involved in that?" "At first, nobody at work knew what Megan and I were doing," she said. "But then Megan's husband showed up at a party one night, took a few pics on his phone. Sandy, that's one of the girls from the office, found the photos and recognized us. Word got around. The other girls didn't judge us. Honestly, they were more curious than anything." She took a sip of her drink, her voice quieter now. "A few of them even asked if we could help set something up, just once, to try it out. So Megan and I did. A couple of them backed out after the first time, said it wasn't for them. But Claire was different." "How so?" "She asked a lot of questions. What we did, how it worked, what it was like. I could tell she was curious, but unsure. Then one day, during lunch, she saw I was stressed. I told her Megan was sick and I had a party to work that night, 12 guys, solo. I didn't like it. That's when she said she'd come with me. I said nothing, just kept listening. I asked if she knew what she was really signing up for. She said, 'Not really, but I've been thinking about trying it ever since you told me about it.' I asked her why she'd risk her marriage. And she said you were away for months, and she was losing her mind from the lack of sex. She said if she slept with 100 men, you'd never know, so what did it matter?" I swallowed hard. "She came with me that night," Natalie said. "And she loved it. Not just liked it, loved it. Did it 2 more times. Then one day she told me she couldn't do it anymore. Said it wasn't worth the risk. And as far as I know, she never went back." I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest. "I don't get it," I said quietly. "You don't go from faithful wife to gangbang participant overnight. There had to be something else. A warm-up. Some kind of transition." "I don't know," she admitted. "I wasn't with her all the time after work. I didn't see what she did when I wasn't around. I know she danced with some guys sometimes, but I never saw her leave with anyone. Never saw her do anything outside those 3 nights." I closed my eyes for a moment. Claire had stood next to me at an altar, sworn vows, and while I was away working, She broke every single one. And I was about to walk into her kitchen, sit down, and pretend we were going to talk about a few misunderstandings. Number, not now. I stood up and dropped a 20 on the table. "Thanks for telling me," I said. "I'll take it from here." And then I walked out, not knowing what the hell I was going to say to Claire in less than 24 hours. I didn't expect much from Natalie, to be honest. If she knew something, I figured she'd keep it to herself. She was Claire's friend, after all, not mine. But I did expect that she'd tell Claire about our meeting. And if Claire really meant to follow Natalie's advice and come clean, then maybe I could try to salvage what we had. Because despite everything I'd overheard on that call, one thing came through loud and clear. Claire still loved me. She didn't want to lose me. And yeah, she cheated. What she did was way out of bounds. And it still made my blood boil when I thought about it. But that was 6 years ago. And as messed up as it all was, she stopped. She realized what she was doing could eventually blow up in her face and take me and our marriage with it. And it didn't. It didn't back then anyway. No fallout. No scandals. I didn't know a thing about it until now. What really stuck in my throat was how she did it. It wasn't some emotional affair or even a one-time lapse. It was group sex. At bachelor parties. For money, probably. For excitement, definitely. That stung. Not just because of the cheating, but because of how far it was from the version of Claire I thought I knew. But again, it was 6 years ago. And if I was being honest, some good actually did come out of it. Before I left for that project in Alaska, Claire had been reserved, closed off in bed, always pulling back, always shutting down. But when I came back, things changed. She was open, adventurous. Our sex life transformed, and I remember asking her once, what brought all this on? She told me she'd read some tips in Cosmopolitan, some articles about spicing up a marriage. I'd believed it. At the time, it felt sweet, like she'd been waiting to try something new for me. Now I knew better. It wasn't Cosmo. It was 3 nights at those damn parties. And the worst part? It worked. I didn't suspect a thing. So when I pulled up to the house that night, I was already in a tentative state. Not angry, not forgiving either. Just open, ready to hear her out. Ready to see if we had a shot at rebuilding something. I rang the doorbell, waited. Nothing. I rang again. Still nothing. I was about to turn and head back to my truck when the door finally creaked open and Claire called out, "Ethan, where are you going?" "I figured you changed your mind," I said flatly. "So I was leaving." "I didn't open the door because it's your house," she said. "All you had to do was come in." "No, Claire, it's not. Not anymore. Remember? You threw my stuff out on the lawn, changed the locks. That stopped being our house the moment you made it clear I wasn't welcome." She didn't say anything, just stepped aside. "Let's not fight, please. Just come in." She asked if I wanted to sit in the kitchen or living room. I chose the kitchen. It always felt harder to lie in a room with tile and fluorescent light. She grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, cracked them open, slid one across the table to me. I took a sip, set the bottle down, and waited. Claire stared at her drink for a long moment before speaking. "I need you to believe me when I say I love you, Ethan. I really love you. Losing you it would wreck me. And honestly, I've been preparing myself for the idea that I already have. That it's too late. And if it is, I have no one to blame but myself." She paused, swallowed, then went on. "I screwed up. That day, when I offered to take a polygraph to prove I didn't sleep with Victory, meant it. I really did. But the next morning, I started thinking about it. And I realized they wouldn't just ask about him. They'd ask the bigger question." She looked up, met my eyes. "Have you ever cheated on your husband?" I didn't say a word, just watched her, let her sit with that silence. "I couldn't pass that question," she said, "because 6 years ago, when you were in Alaska, I did. I cheated. And I hate that it's true, but it is." She reached for her bottle, then set it down without taking a sip. "It didn't mean anything. It wasn't about love or connection. It was about loneliness and impulse. And, honestly, stupidity. But it woke me up, Ethan. The moment I realized how close I was to losing you, it snapped something in me. I stopped. Cold. And I've never gone near that line again. She shook her head, staring at the table. I know how it sounds. I know it's messed up. But that stupid, selfish mistake, it made me a better wife. At least I think it did. It made me see what I had with you, what I stood to lose. I still didn't speak. Claire finally looked at me again, eyes wet but steady. Please, Ethan, let me finish. I need you to know everything. I don't want to hide anymore. I want to be done with secrets. I leaned back, folded my arms, and nodded. Then tell me, I said. All of it. I was so used to us making love 4 or 5 times a week, Claire began, her voice shaking a little, that when you left for Alaska, the absence it was unbearable. At first, I managed. But after 2 months, I started spiraling. The loneliness, the silence, the longing just consumed me. I thought about having an affair. I really did. She looked at me, searching for something in my face, but I stayed silent. I thought long and hard about it. She continued. I decided I would go through with it because you were away, and you'd never know. I went on a few dates, got close, but every single time it came to making that final decision, I backed down. Because I know myself, Ethan. I know how I attach emotionally. I wasn't looking to replace you. I didn't want a relationship. I just wanted sex. Just something to fill the void. Claire's eyes brimmed, but she kept going. I was in a really bad place. I needed it, craved it. But I also knew if I slept with someone I was dating, there was a high risk I'd develop feelings. I couldn't take that chance. She took a breath and glanced down. Then something came along that offered exactly what I was looking for sex with. No emotional strings, no dinner dates, no romance, no one to text in the morning, just anonymity and pleasure. And it also happened to fulfill a fantasy I'd never told you about. She looked up again, gauging my reaction. I gave her nothing, so she pressed on. You know Natalie? You'd never guess it, but she worked nights as a dancer, organizing bachelor parties. One of the girls at work found out, and suddenly it became this big conversation in the office. Everyone had questions. Even the quiet ones were curious. Claire shook her head, half smiling at the memory. The more I heard, the more intrigued I became. I started fantasizing about it being that free, that reckless. I never really believed I'd do it. But then, well, Becky and Karen wanted to try it. Natalie helped them arrange their own night. They both told me afterward that it was wild, exciting, liberating, but that once was enough. I still don't know what came over me. I never even thought I'd have the courage to ask Natalie to set something up for me. But then, one day at work, she was upset. I asked what was wrong, and she said Megan, her partner for a party, had gotten sick. Natalie was going to have to do it alone, and she hated that. Claire stared into her bottle. I don't even know why I said it. I just blurted out that I'd take Megan's place. She looked back up at me now. It was exactly what Becky and Karen said it would be. It was amazing. I felt powerful, seen, and I loved it. So I did it 2 more times. And honestly, I wanted to keep going. But I realized sooner or later you'd find out. And I knew what that would mean. I couldn't risk losing you. You were still my world, Ethan. You still are. So I stopped. Cold. She swallowed hard. I've never loved anyone the way I love you. I stopped those parties not because I didn't want more, but because I couldn't stand the thought of you finding out. It scared the hell out of me. She went quiet for a moment, then added, That's also why I was so against you going to Caleb's bachelor party. I know what happens at those parties. I saw it. I was it. And I couldn't handle the idea of you doing the same thing I did. Her voice cracked. It's been 6 years, Ethan. And not a day goes by that I don't think about those nights. Sometimes I miss them. Sometimes I hate myself for them. But this what's happening, no, it's what I was always afraid of. That somehow, it would catch up to me. She wiped at her cheek, then sighed. If I hadn't been so paranoid about you and Natalie, I wouldn't have made this whole mess with Victor. I wouldn't have panicked and pretended I was cheating to get back at you. And I wouldn't be standing here now, terrified that I finally lost you. I looked at her, looked through her. My jaw clenched. Take the test, I said quietly. If you can prove those 3 parties are the only times you ever cheated, then we'll talk. I'll come back. We'll figure things out. But if I find out later that you left something out, that's it. No more chances. I stood and walked out. I believed her bit, not completely. Not yet. And even if I did, I couldn't just let her off the hook. I missed her. Yeah, missed the life we'd had. Missed the trust I used to feel. But while she was running wild in hotel rooms, I was alone in Alaska, holding on to what I thought was a loyal marriage. And that wasn't nothing. Some guys would have said, screw it, and called Natalie or Kayla and had themselves a good time to even the score. But I wasn't that guy. I never had been. Leaving her in that house, wondering if I was gone for good, that was as close as I'd come to revenge. The next afternoon, Naomi buzzed me on the intercom. Still dodging your wife's calls? Connect it. My phone rang. I picked up. Yes? Ethan, Claire said softly. We need to talk. I found someone to administer the test, Claire said over the phone. His name is Dr. Eric Landon. He wants to speak with you to get a sense of what you need, confirmed what kind of questions to include. If you call him before noon tomorrow, he can schedule the test for 10 a.m. Thursday and have the results ready by late afternoon. Okay, Claire, I said flatly. I'll call him as soon as we hang up. I love you, Ethan, she said softly. I really do. Of course you do, Claire. Of course you do, I said before ending the call. I contacted Landon right away, explained the situation, laid out my concerns, and gave him a list of what I needed to know. After that, I called my cousin Marcus Delaney, a police officer, to check the guy's credentials. Marcus got back to me around 6 that evening and confirmed that the department used Landon's services often and that his results were reliable. Good enough for me. If Claire passed the test, we'd talk, maybe even move forward. But if not, well, I'd already made peace with the idea of walking away. The next 2 days passed quickly, filled with work and distractions. Then, Thursday at noon, I got a call from Claire. I took the test, she said, and I signed the release so he could give you the results. You had to sign a release? I asked. Yeah, I paid for the test. It was under my name. I wasn't expecting to hear anything until Friday, but around 2:15, Landon called. Mr. Walker, he said, I just wanted to let you know the results are clear. She told the truth about everything she disclosed. There was no deception when it came to other instances of infidelity. I hope this gives you some peace of mind. It helps, I admitted. Thanks for calling. I just stepped out of the office when my phone rang again. Claire, did you get the results? Yes. Are you coming home? I'll stop by tomorrow. We'll talk then. Why not today? I still need time to think. Please, Ethan, is there really no way you'll come today? Number, I'll see you tomorrow at 7. That night I sat alone in my motel room, turning over everything in my head. Claire had passed the test, yes, but she hadn't passed Minot yet. There was still one more issue standing between us. One she probably hadn't even considered. The next evening, right on time, I walked up the front steps of what used to be our home. Before I could knock, Claire opened the door and stepped aside wordlessly to let me in. Kitchen? She asked. I nodded. She pulled 2 beers from the fridge, handed one to me, and we sat across from each other at the table like 2 strangers negotiating a fragile truce. I took a sip, then set my bottle down. You took the test, I said, and you passed. That means something. But the fact remains you cheated on me. While I was in Alaska, you broke the promises you made to me. She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. Let me finish. I heard your explanation, I continued. I've thought about it. A lot. And honestly, I think I can move past it. You haven't done it since. And over the past 6 years, We've had good years. Damn good years. And until all this, I had no reason to doubt your love for me. I leaned back in the chair. I can even admit that I benefited in some ways. Our sex life changed when I came back from Alaska. And at the time, I believed you when you said it was because of some articles you read. Looking back, it's obvious that what happened at those parties sparked it. So yeah, in some twisted way, I gained something too. She was silent, listening. But there's still something we have to deal with, Claire, I said. If we're going to rebuild anything, I need you to understand this. I looked her straight in the eyes. When I was in Alaska, I suffered too. I missed you. I missed the intimacy, the connection, the sex. I wanted, just like you did. But I kept my vows. I stayed faithful. I endured. Because I believed I had a wife waiting for Mayone who was doing the same. I let that hang in the air before continuing. And now, even after the truth came out, there's still this pattern. You use sex as a weapon, to punish me, to control me, to get your way. When you're angry, when you want leverage, when you're not getting what you want, you shut down. And I suffer, quietly, silently, every damn time. Claire looked like she wanted to speak, but she didn't. I'm not asking for sex on demand, I added. I understand there are days when you're tired, or not in the mood, or not feeling well. That's life. That's marriage. But I won't tolerate you using your body to manipulate me anymore. That ends now. I leaned forward. You know where I stand. You need to think about where you stand. I'm not interested in empty apologies. I'm interested in change, in partnership, in respect. Because this, what we've been doing lately, isn't that. Claire swallowed and whispered, I'll never do it again, Ethan. I swear. I swear to God. Ethan, I'll never do it again. I shook my head. That's not enough, Claire. You don't get to say that 5 minutes after I lay it all out. I need you to think about what that promise means. You can't just say it to keep me here, you have to mean it. Because if I come back and you ever use sex as a weapon again, I'm done. No more talks, no more second chances. So think about it. She looked like she wanted to protest, but I stood up. I'll call you on Sunday. We'll talk again then. I don't need time to think, Ethan, she said quickly. You might think you don't, I said, walking toward the door. But I do. I'm the one who has to decide if I'm willing to risk getting burned all over again. I already paid for the motel through Sunday, so I'll call you then. I walked out, knowing full well I didn't need the extra time. I just wanted her to sit with the silence for a while, to feel even a fraction of the cold I'd lived with. That night, I headed to the Hitch and Post, drowned a few thoughts in beer, played some pool, and called it a night. Saturday was all errands and chores, laundry, groceries, things I'd been putting off. But that night, I ended up right back at the Hitch and Post. I was leaning over a pool table, halfway through a game, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Why are you playing this dumb game when you could be dancing with me? I turned and saw Zoe, standing there with that same half smile. Good question, I said, handing the cue stick to Sam. You win, Sam. Then I followed her to the dance floor. I was surprised you didn't call after last week, she said as we swayed. I told you about my situation. Yeah, but I figured that was just one of those lines married guys use to get women to trust them. Sorry, I said, but it was the truth. Every word. She watched me for a moment. I've been watching you since I got here. Haven't seen you talking to anyone else. You two still not settled? Almost, I said. Maybe tomorrow. Okay then, she said, smiling. I have you till tomorrow. We danced a few more songs, and when we sat back down, Zoe leaned toward me. You see those two women across the room? They haven't taken their eyes off us since they walked in. I turned to look. Natalie and Megan, sitting at a table watching. When I looked their way, they both waved. I waved back. Looks like the fan club just expanded, I joked. Zoe raised an eyebrow. Should I be jealous? Nah, I said. But I do need to keep things above board. They work with my wife. If we don't go say hi, they'll assume I'm dating you. And if they tell Claire that, this gets messier than it needs to be. I stood, walked over to their table, and asked if they'd like to join us. Won't that ruin your evening? Megan asked, half smiling. There's no evening to ruin, just a dance with a friend. Natalie tilted her head. You alone? I nodded. Came for a few drinks and some pool. Zoe decided I needed rescuing. You and Claire settled things yet? She asked. We talked. I think we made progress. I'll know by tomorrow. She took your advice, by the way. Told me everything. Passed the polygraph. Natalie looked impressed. So you're ready to move forward? Almost. One issue left to work out. If she's serious, I'm in. If not, I'm gone. You know, Megan said, there's going to be some disappointed women if you and Claire work it out. Unlikely, I said, smirking. No, really. Megan loves Claire, but she's secretly hoping you break up so she can have a shot. Zoe's clearly falling for you. And me? If you and Claire split, I'd chase you in a heartbeat. I chuckled. Well, just between us. If Claire and I split, and the three of you are still around and single Natalie, you win. She grinned, kissed me on the cheek, and we headed back to the table. I danced the rest of the night with the three of them, letting the music distract me from the decision looming over tomorrow. The next morning, I slept late, then grabbed breakfast at IHOP. When I got back to the motel, I debated whether to start packing but decided against it. No point in making assumptions. At noon, I picked up the phone and called. Hello? Claire answered. It's me. When are you coming home? What have you decided? Damn it, Ethan. You know what I've decided. I'm not going to use sex to punish you ever again. I swear. All right, I'll come by at 5. I need to grab my things. I'll cook dinner. As I started packing, I wondered, could she keep that promise? Maybe, maybe not. People don't change overnight, and instinct is hard to rewire. Especially something as deeply ingrained as using intimacy for control. But this time, I was serious. If she slipped again, I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't fight. I'd just leave. Maybe time would be the only answer. I knew and liked most of the guys at the party, let's say the majority, because Victor Lane was there, and I couldn't stand the guy. He'd always had a thing for Claire, even back before we were married, and had tried more than once to drive a wedge between us. That alone made me keep my distance from him the entire night. 3 poker tables were set up, each running nickel-dime quarter stakes, dealer's choice, with a 3-raise limit. Nobody was going to lose more than beer money. It was laid back, just a bunch of guys having fun in Dylan's apartment. 2 hours in, the doorbell rang. Ryan went to open it and found 2 uniformed policewomen standing there. One of them said, "We got noise complaints from your neighbors." Then she asked, "Whose apartment is this?" Ryan pointed at Dylan, and before anyone could say a word, the 2 officers walked up to him, slapped real handcuffs on his wrists, and said, "You're under arrest." They read him his rights. You have the right to remain silent, and all that, and for a moment, we all froze. Nobody spoke. The room was dead silent except for the sound of the handcuffs clicking shut. It was clear by the look on Ryan's face that this wasn't something he had planned. But then, the officer reading Dylan his rights reached into her pocket, pulled out a tiny cassette player, and hit play. Music started blasting, and the second officer began taking off her uniform. Right then, we all realized what was happening. From that point on, it became exactly the kind of party Claire had pictured in her worst nightmares: wild, loud, chaotic. And I won't lie, the temptation was real. I watched Tom, Dylan, and Mark getting a little too familiar with Lila, while Victor leaned over to me and asked, "Aren't you gonna play?" "No way," I said. "If Claire ever found out, she'd kick me out the door and into the street." Victor rolled his eyes. "Come on, man. Marriage vows? These 2 ladies are top tier. You won't get better anywhere." He wasn't wrong. Lila and her friend Brianna were gorgeous, confident, and clearly experienced at keeping a group of men on edge. I watched them, and I won't pretend I didn't feel it. I asked myself, why not? Claire had cut me off, treated me like a stranger for 9 straight days. I was a man. I had needs. These women weren't looking for love or emotional entanglement. Just pleasure. Just sex. And I was sitting in a room full of it. More than once, my hand drifted toward my belt, but each time, I stopped. Something in me wouldn't budge. Just before the party started winding down, both women walked up to me. Lila tilted her head and smiled. "What's wrong, honey? Don't like what you see?" "Quite the opposite," I said. "I'm dying to do this with both of you, but I've got this stupid defect in my personality." Brianna raised an eyebrow. "What kind of defect?" "I have this ridiculous belief that I should be faithful to my wife." Brianna blinked, then smiled slowly. "Wow, didn't think guys like you existed anymore." "I might have to give you my number," Lila added, "just in case your wife's dumb enough to let you go." "I'd double down on that," Lila said. "Men who say no to us? Rare and sexy." Tom and Dylan came over and led them away again. As I watched them walk off curves, swaying, hips swinging, I shook my head. "You sleep with men at parties, but you're hoping for someone like me? That's something." The party started to wind down after that. Just the 6 of us left: Tom, Dylan, Lila, Brianna, and me. I was one of the more sober guys, so I stayed to help clean up. As I was gathering cups and trash, the girls came over. "You should at least give us a kiss, honey," Brianna purred. "For free, of course," Lila giggled. They each kissed me soft, warm, and probably meant to leave a mark and handed me a slip of paper with their numbers. "I'm serious," Brianna said. "Call me. If your wife screws up again, well, you know where to find me." They left, and Tom, who had been the one to book them, just laughed. "Man, I wish I'd been born a sexy woman." Those two just spent 4 hours here, had the time of their lives, and left with $2,300. And that doesn't even include the $400 I paid them just to show up. That's $340 an hour, Ethan, for dancing, kissing, and drinking beer. We cleaned up the rest of the apartment, and I finally stepped outside, but the night still wasn't over. I spotted 2 women standing in front of a Ford Focus with the hood popped open. I recognized them instantly: Lila and Brianna. "Car trouble?" I asked. "It won't start," Lila said, frustrated. I walked to my truck, pulled a flashlight out of the glove box, and took a look under their hood. "Bad luck tonight," I said. "Your positive battery terminal's oxidized and cracked. Car's not moving until that's replaced. And at this hour, every auto parts store is closed." "Crap," Brianna sighed. "We'll call a cab," Lila offered. "Eventually." "At this time of night?" Brianna muttered. "We'll be here until dawn." I looked at them both and shook my head. "No, you won't," I said. "I'll give you a ride." "I've got the day off tomorrow," I told them. "So I'll pick up the parts in the morning, get it fixed, and we'll come back to start her up." "Oh, God, you're our savior, honey," Brianna said, grinning as the 3 of us got into my truck. Turned out it was her car, but since she and Lila were neighbors, I just needed to drop them off at the same place. When we got to their place, I agreed to pick Brianna up at 10 o'clock the next morning. When I walked through the front door of our house, the bedroom door was locked. I stood in front of it, staring for a moment, thinking about that old John Wayne movie where his wife locked him out and he kicked down the door shouting, "There won't be any locked doors in this house." For a moment, I considered it, but then reason kicked in. Breaking a door down meant I'd have to fix it or replace it. And for what? Unless I was planning on forcing myself into bed next to a woman who didn't want me there, the couch would have to do. The sofa was just as comfortable. Physically, emotionally, it felt like exile. I was still in a foul mood the next morning. Claire was still asleep, so I made myself breakfast. As I sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and finishing my eggs, she walked in, hair tied back, eyes puffy from sleep. "Where's my breakfast?" she asked, like I was a line cook who forgot her order. "You haven't made it yet," I replied calmly. Then I stood, placed my dishes in the dishwasher, and walked toward the garage. "Where are you going, Ethan?" "To pick up Brianna, then to Dylan's place to fix her car." "Who's Brianna?" "One of the dancers from last night." She folded her arms. "You're going to pick her up? Let me guess you had sex with her, and now you're going back for seconds?" Her voice was bitter, accusing, dripping with contempt. I turned to her, jaw clenched. "Why do you care, Claire? You haven't touched me in over a week. You've acted like I'm invisible, so why the hell do you care?" And then, because I'm a man and men can be absolute idiots when we're hurt, I let my mouth run wild. "You love sex as much as I do," I snapped. "So if I'm going without, you must be too, or maybe not. Maybe you're not suffering at all. Maybe there's someone else keeping you in a good mood while I sleep on the couch. Is that it, Claire? Are you screwing around behind my back while treating me like garbage? Am I your loyal idiot husband while some other guy gets the real you?" Her eyes widened in shock. It was the first honest emotion I'd seen in her face in days, and it felt good, too good. I grabbed my toolbox and walked out before she could answer. "Frank, come back. We need to talk." I turned briefly. "The only thing we need, Claire, is for you to apologize for being a complete nightmare the last 2 weeks." Then I was gone. I picked up Brianna at 10 sharp. We swung by the parts store, got the right battery terminal, and headed over to Dylan's to get her car running. On the way, she noticed my mood. "You look miserable, honey. Want to talk about it?" I sighed, then told her the whole thing. The fight with Claire, the accusations, the silence, the locked bedroom door. "So let me get this straight," she said. "Not only does she hate bachelor parties, she now assumes you cheated on her last night?" "Without a doubt." "Want me to call her, tell her nothing happened?" "God, no. That would just make it worse. She'd think I put you up to it. She already probably thinks I'm with you now just to sleep with you." Brianna chuckled softly, then looked over at me. "Well, if things go south, call me." Then she paused. "But you won't, will you? I'm just a party girl. That's how you see me." "Don't say that," I said. "You're a great woman, Brianna. Seriously. You're kind, funny, and I think we'd make good friends. But as long as I'm married, it can't be more than that. Even if things fall apart between me and Claire, I won't jump into anything until the dust settles." She looked at me, studied my face, and then smiled softly. "I believe you mean that." "I do." She leaned over and kissed my cheek. "You're a rare one, Ethan. I haven't met many truly good guys in my life, but you're at the top of the list." We got to Dylan's. I fixed the car and waited to make sure it started before heading home. When I got back, Claire was gone. I changed the oil in the truck, ate some leftovers, and sat in front of the television trying to let my mind settle. Around 7 o'clock, she came home. She didn't say a word as she walked past me, through the living room and into the kitchen. I heard Claire banging around in the kitchen, pulling out plates and clanking utensils, clearly making herself something to eat. About 20 minutes later, she walked into the living room and stood in front of the television, arms crossed. "You want to know where I've been?" I didn't even look away from the screen. "Number." "Maybe I was out looking for a lover," she snapped. "Since you've got your dancer friend, I figured you'd understand." At that moment, she was nothing but cold to me, a woman who'd spent nearly 2 weeks icing me out, shutting me down, using intimacy as leverage. And now, what? She wanted me to feel jealous. I was angry, tired, done playing along. "I doubt you were looking," I said without emotion. "More likely, you were just with the guy you've been cheating on me with since you decided to stop sleeping with me." She screamed, "You bastard! How can you say that about me?" I finally looked up at her. "It's just as easy for me to think that about you as it is for you to think that about me. Besides, didn't you say you were looking?" She stormed out of the room. I didn't follow, just went back to watching television. That night, I decided to go to bed early mostly to avoid getting locked out again. I was lying there, reading, when Claire came into the bedroom. I don't want you in here with me, she said, standing in the doorway. Too bad, Claire. I slept on the couch last night. If you don't want to be in here, you can take the couch tonight. She didn't argue, just turned and slammed the door behind her. I got up early the next morning, quietly got ready for work, and left before she even stirred. It felt like the first moment of peace I'd had in days. But when I pulled into the driveway that evening, I knew something was off. There were clothes scattered across the lawn, shoes, shirts, jackets. I parked, stepped out of the truck, and realized they were mine. Everything on the lawn belonged to me. I walked up to the front door, tried my key, but it didn't fit. She'd changed the locks. I went around to the back. Same thing, locked out of my own house. That was it. I went back to the truck, grabbed my pry bar from the toolbox, walked up to the front porch, and jammed it into the big window next to the door. One hard pull and the glass shattered. If Claire wanted me out, then she could clean up the mess. I stepped inside, grabbed some trash bags, and started gathering my clothes. Then I made one slow lap around the house and took everything I need: documents, laptop, gear. I had a separate vacation savings account she didn't know about, where I deposited 10% of my paycheck every week. Before logging off the home computer, I transferred every cent from our shared savings and checking accounts into that vacation fund. Next, I called the bank and canceled all our joint credit cards. The only one I left active was the American Express card in my name, used for business travel. I don't know what Claire thought was going to happen. Maybe she thought I'd beg my way back in, but she was about to find out how different things look when the money and the man disappear at the same time. I drove to a motel near the office and started unloading. As I was bringing in the last bag, my phone rang. Not Claire's number. I answered. Hello? Ethan, this is Leo Bradford. Look, maybe I'm stepping into something that's none of my business, but I thought you'd want to know Claire's at the Hitchin Post, with Victor Lane. That got my attention. They're sitting real close in one of the booths at the back, Leo said. Victor's got his arm around her. He kissed her. She didn't push him away. I took a deep breath. Thanks for letting me know, Leo. Appreciate it. So Victor finally got what he wanted. Took him a decade, but he found his opening. The next morning at work, Naomi, our secretary, left a stack of messages on my desk. 3 of them were from Claire. I threw them straight in the trash. I looked at Naomi and said, from now on, I'm not taking any calls from Claire Walker. If she calls, tell her I'm in a meeting or out of the office. Hell, tell her I said not to patch anything through, no matter what. Naomi raised an eyebrow. Trouble at home? Not for long. Around 10 o'clock, things slowed down, and I picked up the phone to call a friend of mine who'd gone through a divorce not too long ago. I asked him for the name of his lawyer. I wasn't ready to file yet, but I needed to know what my options were. I needed to clear my head, so I walked across the street from the motel to a small diner, grabbed a booth, ordered a few beers, and half-watched a basketball game on the mounted television. I didn't care who was playing, it was just background noise, something to distract me from the spiral I was already in. The next day, I sat down with the divorce lawyer my friend recommended. The news wasn't good. We lived in a no-fault state, which meant everything would be split 50-50 regardless of who did what. Since I earned almost twice as much as Claire, I'd have to pay alimony. And because I was initiating the divorce, I'd also be responsible for all court costs, my attorney's fees, and, depending on the judge's discretion, possibly even hers. The only upside? No kids. That made things less complicated, but it didn't make it easy. I left the lawyer's office feeling gutted. Legally, it was looking like I'd be better off staying married on paper, at least in just living separately. If Claire wanted a divorce, she could file it herself. At least then I wouldn't be stuck footing her legal bill. I decided the next step was to find an apartment closer to work and start building a new life. 1. Later that day, the receptionist at Benton & Associates picked up the phone. Good morning, Benton & Associates. How may I help you? Claire, it's Tessa. Hey, Tessa, what's wrong? You sound tense. Are you and Ethan okay? Claire hesitated. Why do you ask? You know I work in the Marin building, right? I saw Ethan leaving Tucker Davidson's office this morning. Claire's heart dropped. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Tucker's a divorce lawyer, Tessa said. That's not a good sign. I didn't know that. I've got 6 lines blinking, but can we grab lunch at Maxine's? Say noon? Yeah, Claire said. Let's… 1. Over salads and iced tea, Claire asked the question burning in her chest. Does Tucker do anything besides divorce? No, Tessa said. He does family law, mostly divorces. Why? You two having serious problems? Claire nodded. Yeah, we are. Then she told Tessa everything, or at least her version of it. You're kidding, Tessa said. Claire, you've known Ethan for over a decade. You don't seriously believe he'd do something like that. I didn't want to believe it, Claire said. But I got a call from Victor Lane. Tessa blinked. Victor called you? He said Ethan hooked up with both dancers at Dylan's bachelor party. Tessa's face hardened. You believed him? Ethan admitted he was meeting one of the dancers the next day, Claire said. So I thought it must be true. Wait, you didn't even let him explain? He didn't give me a reason to, Claire said defensively. He said he was going to help her with her car bet. What kind of man meets up with a stripper the morning after a bachelor party? Did you even ask him what happened? Claire looked away. Let me guess. Victor told you there were pictures? Claire nodded. He said if I met him at the Hitch and Post the next night, he'd show them to me. Why not at Denny's? You met him there first, didn't you? He said he left his phone charging and didn't bring it. Tessa exhaled sharply. Claire, you know Victor's always hated Ethan. He's been chasing you for years. Don't you think he might have, I don't know, a motive? Claire didn't answer right away. I shouldn't have gone to meet Victor, she said finally. When I got home, Ethan asked if I was cheating on him. He accused me of it. Said it was the only explanation for how I'd been acting. And you? I didn't deny it. I just let him wonder. Tessa shook her head. So let me get this straight. You froze him out for nearly 2 weeks, believed one phone call from the guy who's been obsessed with you for years, threw his stuff on the lawn, changed the locks, and when he broke in to grab his things, I didn't talk to him. He wouldn't take my calls. I tried to pay the window repair with a credit card and it was declined. Claire looked down. I had to write a check. Tessa didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, finally, she leaned forward. Claire, I think you just made the biggest mistake of your life. I hope you were smart enough to call the bank before you wrote that check, Tessa said, stirring her iced tea. If Ethan was mad enough to cancel your credit cards, he might have cleaned out your accounts too. Claire's face paled. Damn, this just keeps getting worse. And what about these photos Victor promised you? Claire sighed. I met him at the Hitch and Post. He showed me 2 photos. Ethan was in the background, kind of blurry, but you could clearly see him watching a group of guys around one of the dancers. His was the only visible face. And that's your smoking gun? Tessa asked, unimpressed. Number, he said those weren't the real photos. He said he had better ones, but… Let me guess, Tessa cut in. He wanted something in return. Told you that if you let him help you get revenge on Ethan, he'd show you the good stuff? Claire hesitated. Yeah, that's probably what he meant. Oh my God. Claire, please tell me you didn't go home with him. No, I didn't agree to go anywhere, so he didn't show me the photos. Tessa leaned forward. Didn't it occur to you that maybe he didn't show them because they don't exist? If he had them, he would have used them to push you over the edge, but he didn't, because he's bluffing. Claire looked down. I didn't think of that. And did it cross your mind that you were sitting in the Hitch and Post? The exact bar where half of Ethan's friends hang out? That someone might have seen you all cozy with Victor and called him? Claire closed her eyes. That's exactly what happened, isn't it? No wonder Ethan went to a divorce lawyer, Tessa said. You basically handed him the pen to sign the papers. Claire, I'm not a man, so I can't tell you what it feels like to go through something like this. But if I were Ethan, after everything you put him through, I'd be done. Claire's throat tightened. If you want to keep him, Tessa said softly, you need to get to him before this turns into something permanent. At the office, around mid-afternoon, Naomi buzzed through. I know you said not to take messages from your wife or connect her through, she said, her voice cautious. But something happened that I think changes that. What is it? She's here, Naomi said, standing right in front of me. Says she won't leave until she talks to you. Tell her I'm busy, I said. Tell her I'm not talking to her during office hours. There was a pause. Then Naomi came back. She said she brought a book, and she'll sit here and read until your day is done. I checked the clock. 3 hours left in the workday. What I was doing wasn't urgent, just busy work, but I wasn't in the mood to cut Claire any slack. Still, I didn't want Naomi stuck in the middle of it all, and I knew I had to talk to Claire eventually. Fine, I said. Tell her I'll meet her when I'm done. At 4:15, I got a call from Claire's best friend. Frank, it's Stephanie. How are you, Steph? It's been better. Listen, I had lunch with Claire today. She told me everything, or at least her side of it. I leaned back. I see. She did some stupid stuff, Steph said. No argument there, but I don't think it was as malicious as it might have looked from the outside. Did she tell you about the cheating? She swears there wasn't any. Victor told her he had damning photos, tried to use them to get her to sleep with him. She said she teased him to try and get him to show them, but he never did. Because he doesn't have them. I believe her. I don't know, Steph. This whole thing, it's bigger than Victor. It's how she treated me. The accusations. The cold shoulder. Locking me out. Throwing my stuff on the lawn. I get it. I really do. But you two need to sit down and talk. At least see where things stand. Maybe, I said, but I'm not promising anything. I understand. Thanks for listening. Good luck, Frank. Thanks, Steph. At 5 o'clock, I saved my work, shut down my computer, and walked out to the reception area. Claire looked up from her book as I stepped into the room. There was real worry in her eyes, something I hadn't seen in a while. She stood, ready to say something, but I cut her off. Meet me at the hitch and post, I said flatly. We'll sit in the same booth you and Victor were cuddling in, and we'll talk. I walked right past her. On the way, I stopped at a gas station to fill up. By the time I pulled into the parking lot of the hitch and post, Claire was already there. She'd taken a booth in the back. It didn't escape me that it might have been the exact same one Victor had his arm around her in. Maybe she thought I meant it literally, or maybe she wanted to face it head on. Either way, the irony wasn't lost on me. I slid into the booth across from Claire, keeping my expression neutral. When the waitress Naomi, a familiar face at the hitch and post, came over to take our order, I looked her in the eye and said, I'll have a beer, and separate checks, please. The flicker of shock on Claire's face made the entire trip worthwhile. Once Naomi walked away, I leaned forward slightly. All right, Claire, you wanted this meeting. Say what you came to say. She wasted no time. Why did you cancel all our credit cards and drain the bank accounts? I almost laughed. You're really going to play dumb? She didn't answer. You threw all my stuff on the lawn and changed the locks. That tells me everything I need to know about where we stand. You didn't want me there anymore. I got the message, so I left. And since I was leaving, I wasn't about to keep paying your bills. I canceled the cards because I knew you'd use them. As for the bank, you kicked me out, so I figured you could help fund my move. I paused, then added, You've still got the house, and it's worth a hell of a lot more than what I took from the checking account. Of course, now you have to cover the mortgage and the utilities on your salary. That might be tough, but hey, this is what you wanted, right? No, Ethan, she said quietly. It's not. I raised an eyebrow. Really? I lost it when you said you were going to see that dancer. I knew I didn't want you to go to that party in the first place, and it ended up being exactly what I pictured: booze, strippers, and regrets. And that has what to do with me? I asked. Just because something happened doesn't mean I did anything. Let me ask you this: when you go out after work with the girls, And I know damn well that Linda Bliss and Joyce Baker have been in the back seats of strangers' cars before the second round is even served. Does that mean you're in those back seats too? That's different, she snapped. No, I said firmly. It's not. You judged me for being present, not for doing anything. The only thing I did was give someone a ride home when their car broke down and fix it the next day. I got a kiss on the cheek and a thank you. That's it. And you think just because they were dancers I should have turned my back on them? Come on. Why didn't you just explain that to me? Explain it? I scoffed. You hadn't listened to a word I said in 2 weeks, Claire. Why would that have been any different? She looked down at her hands. Okay, I'll eat my pride. I was wrong. I shouldn't have done what I did. She opened her purse, pulled out a small envelope, and slid it across the table. Here, it's the key to the new locks, so you can come home. I didn't even touch it, just pushed it gently back across the table. I don't think so, I said. The bachelor party, the dancers, that was just one piece of a much bigger problem. You freezing me out for 2 weeks, using sex to manipulate me, treating me like a criminal based on one phone call from a man who's been trying to sleep with you since before we got married. I looked her straight in the eyes. I told you Sunday morning I don't think you were suffering the way I was. I think you had a way to get what you needed, because you seemed just fine. And then there's what I heard from my friends, about you and Victor Lane being real cozy at the hitching post. And let's not forget when you came home late that night and heavily implied you'd gone looking for a replacement. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. I'm supposed to believe that was just to piss me off? I was mad, she said, voice cracking. I wanted to hurt you, but I swear to God, I never cheated. I would never do that. That's not what I heard. Word around town is that Victor helped you get even with me. I didn't sleep with him, she said, a little too fast. Okay, maybe I flirted with him. Maybe I used that to try and get him to show me the pictures he claimed he had. He told me he had pictures of you with the girls, asked me if I wanted to see them, and I said yes. I leaned forward. And did you see anything? She hesitated. He showed me 2 photos, she said. You were in one just standing there, watching, nothing happening. He said he had more explicit ones, but I didn't give him what he wanted, so he didn't show them. I sat back in the booth, jaw tense. And that's what all of this has been about? 2 grainy pictures of me not doing anything, and the word of a man who's been trying to sleep with you for 10 years? Claire didn't answer. She just stared at the envelope in front of her like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I kissed him twice, Claire said softly. But that's all. Nothing else happened. I stared at her. Do you have a way to prove that? She paused, thinking. Maybe. Your friend Ben Carter and his wife were at the Hitchin' Post that night. I stopped to say hi to them on my way out. They can confirm I left alone. Victor was still there when I left. I shrugged. And how do I know you didn't meet up with him later? How do I know this wasn't some setup like, you leave first, he follows. Nobody sees you leave together? You know exactly what I mean. Claire's voice cracked. Damn it, Ethan. What do you want me to do? Take a lie detector test? Sure, I said, folding my arms. Organize it. Let's see if you pass. She looked at me, tears forming in her eyes. What's it like, she asked, to be telling the truth and not be believed? You tell me, I said quietly. Claire wiped at her cheek and whispered, It's horrible. You said earlier that I should have known you better than to believe something like this. But shouldn't you have known me better? We've been together for how many years, and you still didn't trust me. I'm sorry, she said. Looking back, I see how irrational I was. I've seen bachelor parties destroy people I know. My brother Jason, my cousin Travis, you know what happened. And when you said you were going to that party, everything came flooding back. I didn't want that to happen to us. And when you told me you were meeting one of the dancers the next morning, it confirmed every worst fear I had. I kept thinking about how Travis left his wife and kids for a woman he met at a party just like that. I was in a spiral, Ethan. And when I yelled, I needed you to see the fear in that. I needed you to understand. Why didn't you just say, come with me, if you thought I was being ridiculous? Why didn't you show me it was nothing to worry about, instead of just walking away and leaving me to stew in it? So now it's my fault? I asked, not hiding the edge in my voice. Claire, you pushed and pushed. Then, when I pushed back, now it's suddenly on me? I'm not saying that. I'm just, can't we put this behind us? She said, her voice trembling. I love you, Ethan. I don't want to lose you. I need you beside me. She reached into her purse and pulled out the envelope again. The one with the key to the new lock stand, slid it across the table. Please, come home. Just then, she looked up, and her eyes widened. Hi, Natalie. I turned, confused, and saw Natalie Rodess, the dancer from the party, the one I hadn't expected to see again walking toward our booth. She gave me a warm smile. Hi, Ethan. Claire's eyes darted from me to Natalie and back again. Do you two know each other? Yes, I said slowly. And I think you know each other too. Natalie works with me. Well, Natalie said with a grin, that's not entirely true. I work for Claire. She's my boss, office manager. I blinked. So that was why Claire never knew about Natalie's side hustle, because Natalie clearly wanted to keep it that way. I gestured to the empty space beside Claire, and Natalie slid into the booth next to her. I didn't want to get in the middle of anything, she said with a laugh. But when I saw two of my favorite people sitting together, I had to come say hi. Claire's face was tense. Ethan's one of your favorite people? Natalie looked at me with a flicker of surprise, then back at Claire. You and Ethan? I didn't know. Claire didn't blink. How do you know my husband? There it was, the question I didn't want to answer, but I realized I didn't have to. This was Natalie's secret, and if anyone was going to reveal it, it had to be her. I gave her a look, your callant. She picked up on it. She smiled and shrugged. I tried to steal Ethan from his wife, but he wouldn't budge. I mean, I'm probably one of the hottest women in the state, and the guy didn't even take my number. You tried to steal my husband? Claire asked, blinking. I didn't know he was married to you. He wasn't wearing a ring that night. He even wore gloves. She laughed. I only found out he was taken when he politely turned me down. That's when I realized he was probably the most decent guy I've ever met. Claire stared at her. Natalie just smiled, folded her hands on the table, and said, If you're smart, Claire, you'll do whatever it takes to keep him. And just like that, the entire dynamic in the room shifted. I didn't see a wedding ring, Natalie continued, looking at Claire. I didn't know he was married. That night, Megan and I were here having a couple of drinks when this drunk idiot started acting like he was God's gift to women and to me in particular. He kept pestering me to dance, and when I kept saying no, he got nasty. Really nasty. Her voice lowered slightly, her expression hardening. He started throwing insults, personal, ugly stuff. I finally snapped and threw my drink in his face. He raised his hand like he was going to hit me, and that's when Ethan showed up. Just passing by on his way out, I guess. But he stepped in, grabbed the guy, dragged him outside to the parking lot, and told him if he came back in, he'd be picking himself up out of the dumpster. Claire didn't say a word. She was listening now, really listening. After that, Natalie went on. He came back in, offered to walk Megan and me to our cars just to be sure the creep wouldn't follow us. He was, I don't know, like a knight in shining armor. And not just because he did the right thing. He was kind, protective, respectful, gorgeous, obviously. So yeah, I was a little swept up. I tried to flirt, even asked if I could buy him a drink next time. She smiled wistfully. But no matter what I tried, he didn't budge. And it's probably for the best. Megan wanted him too, and we've been neighbors for years. That could have gotten awkward real fast. Megan wanted my husband too? Claire said, almost to herself. Well, yeah, but relax, you get a pass. I mean, arguing with your boss wouldn't be the brightest career move. Claire gave a short, dry laugh. Smart girl. Natalie looked between us. Now that I see you two together, I get it. I really do. You two belong. No wonder he turned me down. A moment later, the band started tuning up. As the first song played, Natalie turned to me with a grin. "Do you mind if I dance with my hero?" I could feel Claire stiffen beside her, but she didn't say anything. Maybe because she didn't want to say no in front of her employer. Maybe because some part of her trusted me again. Just enough. I stood, took Natalie's hands, and led her to the dance floor. "Nice move," I said as we stepped into rhythm. "Is it Donna or Brenda?" She grinned. "It's Natalie. I don't use my real name at parties. Lila? That's actually Kayla." We both laughed. "I had no idea you were Claire's husband," she said. "Why would you? You've never seen us together." "As much as she talks about you at work, I should have figured it out." "That much, huh?" "You have no idea," she said, her tone shifting into something softer. "She talks about you like you hung the moon and stars. Seriously, it annoys half the girls." "You're perfect, Ethan. The guy who always texts back. The guy who remembers anniversaries, who brings flowers just because." "Yeah, well," I sighed. "The last couple of weeks haven't exactly been moonlight and roses." I told her what had happened since the night of the party. The accusations, the silence, the Cold War. She listened with quiet disbelief. "That doesn't sound like the Claire I know," she said. "She's mad protective of you at work. When the other girls talk about their husbands cheating or getting caught with someone else, she always pipes up about you how you'd never do that. She practically shuts down the conversation. You should hear her when she talks about those women who sneak around. She calls them trash. She's especially harsh on Linda and Joyce. Won't even talk to them. Calls them homewreckers." "That's wild," I said. "She accused me of cheating, and now I'm just not sure what to believe." "She would never cheat on you, Ethan. That woman loves you fiercely. Gets mad? Sure. Cold? Absolutely. But she wouldn't cross that line." The music ended. As we walked back toward the booth, Natalie leaned in and whispered, "I'm about to piss off your wife." "What?" She smiled. "Just remember, Dory's my friend. But if you two can't make this work, I meant what I said before. Call me." Then she kissed me. Light, bold, just enough to make Claire sit up straight. Natalie grabbed her purse, flashed a wink at Claire, and said, "Take care of my hero. I'll see you at work." Then she was gone.